and welcome to this third episode of Celtic Wave, where we find out about how the Troubles impacted on surfers travelling to the Republic of Ireland and the friction between soul surfers and competition surfers. The rise of surfing coincided with the beginning of the Troubles, the term commonly used to describe the violent, civil and political conflict in Northern Ireland from the late 1960s until the late 1990s. For some surfers in Northern Ireland, the waves represented an escape from the realities of what was happening across the country during this period. With increased security checks at border crossings, travel between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland became more challenging. But this did not stop surfers from Northern Ireland regularly making the trip to the west coast of the island in pursuit of great waves.
I suppose at that stage you were heading really into the deep troubles in the early 70s and stuff, and so it was so refreshing to get over the border and get away from all the stuff that was going on here, being constantly stopped by the army and checkpoints. And as soon as you got across that border, the world was your oyster.
At the start, I was living in Enniskillen, and then later on, I would have been coming from Belfast. But it was mainly when I was coming from Enniskillen, there would have been a border checkpoint at Balik, just before Balik, a couple of miles before Balik. And the army would have had a sort of an outpost with, manned. And the first few times we came down, they're looking at, when they saw that we would have had our surfboards on the roof of the van. And first couple of times we would have had to unload everything out of the van so they could see what we were carrying, because we had, things with wetsuits in them. But once they got used to us going past, they would have still looked into the van and checked it, but no real bother.
On a Friday night, with all the young soldiers standing there, and they looked probably about 15, they'd go, "Where you going, lads?" "Surfing." And they'd always have a bit of chat. "Oh, right, you surfers, guys, where are you going to?" And we kind of liked a bit of chat, and then just that heading away. Yeah, I guess there was a bit of escapism there. It was nice to get away from maybe some of the attitudes and stuff up here and just go where it just didn't matter. It literally didn't matter.
Ireland was becoming an increasingly popular location for surfing competitions, but this new movement was not without its controversy. In 1979, the Smirnoff International took place in Eastgate, County Sligo, but the event was overshadowed by protests against the commercialisation of the sport.
We did take a stand against it, and we thought, no, this is not a good idea, and we made a big banner and we hung it on the castle. There's an old square castle thing at Eastgate, it's a classic castle. We climbed up the inside of this thing and hung this thing on a banner which said, "I enjoyed surfing till I discovered Smirnoff," which was a play on their own ad, on the Smirnoff ad. I used to enjoy something until I discovered Smirnoff. That was the point we were making. There wasn't any, there was no aggression or anything like that. It's just this banner hanging on the castle, and the point was being made that they really needed to think about what they were doing. But of course, the way the world has gone, we've been snowed under by commercialism.
Because we realised there was a substantial body of people who really didn't want competition surfing.
They expressed themselves and they were listened to. And as I say, Ireland didn't become the main centre for surf contests.
I think the surfing community was very small in Ireland at the time. So everybody knew each other, So that would have, you weren't going to break up with somebody that you knew well just because they objected to a competition,
Recreational surfers who preferred to surf for the pleasure of surfing are sometimes referred to as soul surfers, as opposed to competition surfers with whom they often had friction.
I think in the early days there was very much a black wetsuit brigade that were very anti-competition, didn't want to see any promotion of surfing in Ireland. So they didn't want to see any magazines. Again, just if you come, great, but let's not shout about it. Let's not tell the whole world what good waves, because the more people that we have surfing here, the less waves for me.
In spite of this difference of opinion amongst the sport's leading voices, throughout the 1980s, the surf scene in Ireland continued to grow, and so did the competitions, with surfers such as Zoe Lally and Andrew Hill dominating throughout the 1990s.
It wasn't just about surfing in Port Russia, it was about somehow getting down to Donegal, places like Bundoora and Rossnala where they had competitions, and yeah, that was the start of the transition out of Portrush to surf other types of breaks.
Surf clothing was one of the huge changes for surfing. Surf clothing became trendy. Shops in Dublin, and the sport got huge recognition from that. The sort of grunge look, the baggy shorts, that brought a lot of people into surfing, or at least they began to know about surfing and the fact that they had great surf.
We were always sort of in all of the other countries when we travelled, and I didn't really think we could compete other level playing field with, Australia or America, South Africa, France, wherever, where in actual fact, if we focused on coaching and competition, we could compete because we had the quality of waves here.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe for more content. In the next episode, we find out how female surfers overcame inequalities in the sport locally and across the world.
But it definitely is improving. There's more female surfing around Ireland. There's a lot of up and coming younger girls, which is great to see. So all the clubs are doing a great job in that sense.